Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another PlayStation review. Today I'm taking a look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 for the PlayStation 5. Now this is obviously the sequel to the incredibly successful first game that came out several years ago. It's a game I thoroughly enjoyed and I have completed on numerous occasions, the first one. So I've been really looking forward to this second game. If they delivered the quality that they gave us in the first game and then, ramped it up for the PlayStation 5, then we were in for a treat. And so it builds upon its predecessor. It kind of continues to offer an immersive and challenging medieval experience in 15th century Bohemia. It picks up immediately after the events of the first game. If you've played the first game, you'll know that it kind of ends with a whimper. That's the only criticism I could give the first game. The way it ended, it was like, it just felt like you were going off on another mission and then the game ended. Well, this game starts basically where the first one ended. So you are going with Hans Capon, Sir Hans, to deliver a message to the neighbouring governors, if you like, to try and unite the kingdom. Along the way, you are ambushed by bandits. Your men are essentially slaughtered, and you and Hans are left fighting for your lives. You basically then, for the next big chunk of the game, are stranded in this part of the country. No one knows who you are. No one believes who you are because you've nothing left, and you have been left injured as well. Because one thing the game does do, you start the game quite powerful this time round, whereas the last time in the first Kingdom Come Deliverance game, you were basically a blacksmith's son, no skills with a sword at all, and you had to really work hard to build up your stats and skills, and it takes a while. Now, in this game, you start off, essentially as Hans' bodyguard. So you've got the armor, you've got the sword, you've got the skills. But cleverly, the game, doesn't want to kind of set you off overpowered in this game or anything like that. So you get severely injured at the start of the game, and that kind of drops your stats. So then you've got to kind of build them up again. It's not as arduous as it was in the first game. It really felt like an uphill slog in the first game, but it was certainly very rewarding. It doesn't feel as arduous as that, but definitely you do have to kind of relearn the mechanics of the game because your stats have kind of dropped significantly. So the game, once again, commits to realism here. It is a role-playing game in every sense of the word. You're going to have to manage aspects of hunger, fatigue, hygiene, and all of these things can directly influence your interactions with the characters in the game. If you turn up somewhere to talk to somebody and you're basically covered in mud and you stink, you're going to get a non-favourable reaction from that person. So you've got to, when you're hungry, you've got to eat. When you're filthy, you've got to wash, so on and so forth. And when you're tired, you've got to sleep. Now, the game adopts... I don't know how to describe the save system here on this game. Now, in the first game, it was... Basically, you could only really save the game by something called Saviour Snaps. It's a drink, and that essentially, if you've got a few of them in your inventory, you can save the game, sort of thing. Now, this time round, you've got a couple of options to save the game. Every time you sleep in a bed, you can save and sleep. You've got Saviour Snaps again, but they're a little bit easier to get hold of in this game. This time round in this game, but there's also another way to save. You can pause the game, save it, and go to the main menu, and then immediately continue the game again. Now, that might sound a bit of a pain in the backside, and I suppose it is, but the speed that the PlayStation 5 works at, it's a 10-second process, at worst. So for me, if I'm going into a mission and I'm potentially going to be walking into a bandit camp, very, very shortly. I will, if I've no saviour snaps, or if I want to save my saviour snaps, I will pause the game, save it, go to the main menu, and immediately continue it. And then I know I'm not going to lose any of my progress. It doesn't bother me. It might bother other people a little bit more, if I'm being, but for me, it's not a problem at all. On the PlayStation 5, for me, I think the visuals are absolutely stunning. I think it looks really, really fantastic. It's got really detailed environments, dynamic lighting, and it really does feel quite immersive when you're playing it. I think the character models and animations have definitely seen quite a big improvement on the first game. They look good. I think this time they've used face capture and body capture much better than the first one. There are some technical issues here and there, some lighting issues that kind of flash when you're in conversations. I've had a handful of crashes here and there, but I've not had a crash since the game was updated a couple of days ago. But yeah, and I've not really had any bugs that have prevented me from completing missions or anything like that. So I wouldn't describe the game as in like an untidy state or shoddy or anything like that with loads of bugs. With a game this kind of size, I mean, such an immersive and epic role-playing game, you've got to expect a handful of bugs here, and quite clearly they are committed to the game in regards to updating it and stuff, so it's definitely nothing to worry about in my opinion here. The mission structure basically works. You've got your main missions that you normally get in games like this. And early on, the first big chunk of the game, like I say, it's you and Hans get split up, and then it's almost like a rags to riches story in a sense, because you've got nothing but like the tunic on your back, and then you've got to kind of make your way around the maps, do little jobs for people, earn as much money as you can. I got a job as a blacksmith. That kind of put me in good stead, because if you get the job of the blacksmith, you get like a bed to sleep in, which is a great way to start the game. And then slowly but surely you start kind of incrementally improving your character. You'll get different gear, better gear, slowly but surely. There are people on the map that will kind of teach you things. There'll be people that'll teach you how to hunt. There'll be people that teach you how to use your crossbow. There'll be people that can teach you how to thieve. There'll be people that can teach you how to use different swords, different weapons, whatever. And if you've got the money, they can help you. They can improve your stats. And you've got all these different stats that you can improve on, from your speech, your warfare, your swords, your weapons, your crossbows, your physicality, everything. There's so many ways that you can level up in this game. And it feels, when you have leveled up and you choose a particular skill, it really does slowly improve your experience and make the game slightly easier. When I first started the game, within the first 2-3 hours, 4 hours, I was attacked by a bunch of wolves in a forest. And I had nothing really to protect me. I had no real armor on, and I just had a hunting sword, no shield, nothing. And they tore me to shreds. I could not beat them. And then a few hours later, I had better gear on. I was more skilled up, and then I met another pack of wolves, and I took them out within a blink of an eye, and they barely, even when they bit me, they didn't really hurt me, sort of thing. And that's a really good feeling, to feel how much you're improving in a game like this. It can really feel very, very rewarding, because believe me, early gameplay in this thing is brutal, absolutely brutal. Again, and I remember playing this in the first game. In the first game, it took a long time for you to kind of get good at combat and face enemies and come out on top. It's exactly the same here. In fact, it's probably a little bit more difficult in this one, because you're more likely in this game to face more than one person. The combat in this game is certainly easier if it's just one-on-one. because you can just focus on that person. But quite a lot of the times there's 2, 3, 4, or even 5 bandits surrounding you or enemies. And you've really got to be on it really, really quickly. So my advice to anybody in the early game, early gameplay of this, when you're in the game, is if you're attacked by more than one enemy early on, is just run, because you're not going to beat them. It's too difficult to do it. And then you really do feel like a badass later in the game, when you've got some good gear on, you've got a good weapon, your skills are a lot higher, and then there's 5 people attack you, and you just kind of go through them like that hot knife through butter. It's really fun, and it's really cool to see how that works. And for me, it's that kind of reward that I want from a game like this. It just makes the games so much more enjoyable. This is really a role-playing game. It's the very definition of one, in my opinion, because you can do what you want in this game. You really, really can. If you want to be an assassin in this game, do it. You can go into the villages and assassinate everybody in that village. If you want to be a thief, you can do it. Go into these villages and towns, sneak into people's houses, steal what you want, try and get away with it. If you want to be a hunter, go into the woods and hunt animal hides and things like that, and sell them for money and all this kind of stuff. You can do it. All of these things that you want to do in a game like this, you can do it. If you just want to get on your horse and go off and explore, do it. Go and do it. You could literally spend endless hours just roaming the countryside, exploring. There's loads of secrets to be found. There's loads of treasure to be found. Loads of fascinating and interesting people to meet and talk to. And it just allows you to do what you want. If you don't want to follow the game structure and the missions, and you want to do it at your own pace and do what you want, you can do that. And some RPGs these days, role-playing games, they pretend to be like that, but in actual fact, they kind of force you to go down certain routes. They force you to do certain things in order for the game to progress. This doesn't do it. From the minute one, after the prologue sort of thing, and the game opens up to you, you just do what you want. You're free to do what you want, and you could spend the next 20 hours doing whatever you want. Get yourself all skilled up and then start the missions. It'd make it a lot easier. It really is up to you, and that's, for me, what makes this game so special. The voice acting is absolutely top notch here. I can't fault it at all. They've really, really nailed it here. The motion capture is really, really brilliant. There's little here in the way of faults that I can give you. It's bloody funny as well as this game. There's some missions here that honestly are very, very funny. You've got some missions that obviously are taken very, very seriously, and it's there's got political intrigue and all this kind of stuff, and it's actually quite brutal at times as well. When you're at the beginning of the game, when your men are getting slaughtered, it's hard to watch. You're kind of like, oh my god, I've just been sat having a conversation with them and eating a meal, and they're getting absolutely butchered. And then there's some missions where honestly, you're just chuckling to yourself like a child because they're just so funny. There's missions where you're getting absolutely smashed and going skinny dipping. There's other missions where you've got to carry a drunk hunter on your back and he won't shut up. And I mean, it goes on and on and on. There are loads and loads of missions that will kind of, some will touch your funny bone, and some will kind of, draw you in because of their immersion. And as I've talked about as well in regards to the combat, the combat is challenging but rewarding is probably the best way I can describe it. If you didn't like the combat in the first game, you're not going to like the combat here. It's very, very similar to the first game's combat. They've refined it a little bit. It's not just as I don't know what the right word is, challenging, I suppose, but it is definitely still a challenge. You can go somewhere and learn like this new technique called a master stroke that once you, pardon the pun, master that technique, it can make combat so much more easier. And you feel like a real badass when you're countering people's blows and immediately striking them with a master strike, and then just taking them out. It can be really, really rewarding combat, or it can be really, really frustrating. Like I say, sometimes you'll go into a combat scenario, you'll take out 3 or 4 men, no problem, and then I've had a fight with one person, and that person is far more skilled than me, and they've just handed me a massive beating. So you can never really rest on your laurels here. Sometimes, like I say, you get to the point where you feel like you are, really getting a handle on the combat and the mechanics of the game, and then you'll get to a point in the game when you're kind of like, oh, I really didn't, because there's generally speaking always somebody better than you out there. Its sense of realism is just on another level here. Just wandering around like this scene here, you're just wandering around a wedding, picking up food, having some food to do, doing some side missions. I really, really enjoyed, not just the combat missions and all that kind of stuff, just the missions where you can just, take your foot off the gas and just relax, and the wedding mission is like the first big hurdle to get over in the game. You've got to get to this wedding sort of thing. And it was just fun, you're dancing with people, you're doing silly little side missions for them, so on and so forth, because so much of the game is like, right, okay, I've got to do this, and then there are some missions where you kind of like, I can just relax here and take my time here with this mission, and that for me is what makes this game so special. There's very little I can give you about this game that I think is a weakness, other than to say, if you didn't like the first game, you aren't going to like this one either. It's very much a sequel in every sense of the word to the first game. It just improved everything. Everything's improved. The combat, the graphics, the missions, everything has kind of gone up another level here to make this an outstanding role-playing experience. And I don't give full marks very, very often, but I feel like I can't give anything but full marks for this game because I can't find a weakness, and it's a stunning game, and I just absolutely love it. So thanks for joining me for this review.